Three, two, one. Let's go! I'm the host of the PBE podcast, Troy Tittlemeyer, sitting at Image 2023, where all the brightest minds, the technology that's riding the edge, right? And I heard a quote recently: if you're not on the edge, you're taking up too much space. And so here we are at Image 2023. We have modern technology, modern geologic concepts, new ideas, new businesses. We have all these things happening, and we get to sit down at Microseismic Inc's booth 2 straight days, 9 shows. First one is with Dr. Jon McKenna. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
I didn't know A-Train was going to be adjusting the mic for the first 10 seconds. He's here. He's here. A-Train's here. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Jon McKenna. I've been working with Microseismic Inc. for 12 years. It's been really exciting. It's been some of the best years of my life in terms of my career.
Wow.
We've done all sorts of super cool stuff. I've been innovating the technology all along the way, and it's been a great time. You know, I started out with my undergraduate degree from the University of Georgia in geology. Then I moved on and got my master's degree in geophysics. And
that was also in Atlanta?
In Atlanta.
Whoa.
And then, in Athens, Georgia. I'm a University of Georgia Bulldog.
Bulldog.
And then moved out to Denver, got a job with the US Geological Survey and worked there for 10 years. And during that time, I got a PhD with the Colorado School of Mines, in Geological Engineering.
Wow.
And then started here with Microseismic Inc.
Man, that's a pretty impressive resume.
Yeah.
Right? And did you have dads or moms or uncles or aunts? Like, who got you into geology? How did you even go this route?
So, you know, I started my undergraduate degree at the University of Georgia, and I took a year and went to the University of Oregon for my sophomore year.
You were a duck, too?
I was a duck for my
Wow.
sophomore year, and I went all over the Pacific Northwest looking at all the amazing rock formations out there. You've got subduction zones.
Yeah,
you've got
do.
volcanoes.
Serpentinizations going on.
And that's what really got me into it.
Whoa. So that was that you went to Oregon just to find your place in geology.
I did.
Nice. Well, at least Oregon's good for something. Just kidding. My parents live there. Well, cool, man. So you get your degrees from Georgia. You got some major mentors along the way that are kind of like really guiding you through that and giving you a vision of like what you can do as a professional, what you can do with these degrees?
Absolutely. I mean, when I started at the US Geological Survey, that's where I really got into field work and lab work and understanding multiple working hypotheses. We had all sorts of amazing scientists there. And then come here at Microseismic Inc. I mean, Michael Thornton, Peter Duncan, they're very inspirational. We've had some really good scientists come through.
Man.
Amazing.
Right on. So you go USGS, what were you doing for them?
Landslide and debris flow research.
Oh, wow. So up and down the coast of like western U.S., because that's where a lot of that happens?
Yeah, I was primarily working in the Coast Range of Oregon and then all the way up into Seattle and Portland. And then we did a lot of work down in California as well.
Where were your headquarters?
We're headquartered in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And my office was on the Colorado School of Mines campus, and that's how I got involved with CSM, because we had a joint lab, and that's how I then transitioned to working on my PhD there. We had a joint laboratory.
So how does that go? How does, you got a PhD in geological engineering.
Yeah.
That seems broad, but it also seems very specific at the same time, if that makes any sense. Like, how does that go?
Yeah, so, I mean, it really was eye-opening for me as a geologist, because then you're incorporating all the engineering dynamics that go along in the science. And so it really opened up. It was basically saying, okay, I only understand about 50% of the problem. When you bring in the engineering, that's the other 50%.
Okay.
And so it's very important, especially talking to engineers here. How do we relay the message between geophysicists, geologists, and engineers? And that's what I try to do.
Wow. What's the trick, man? What's the language there? What's your What's your tricks?
My trick is to just, think about the problem ahead of time, really understand it.
Yeah.
And apply all the theory and observations and, continue to change and work on your multiple working hypotheses.
Wow. Man, we always talk about that. We're always bringing up the idea of like, all right, we're really good at one thing. We're really good at doing this. And it's like, okay, let's master that, right? Let's limit all potential risk. Let's make it very calculatable, predictable, all those things. And then it's like, at the same time, you need to be changing. You need to be innovating. You need to be taking calculated risks, I guess. So over the years, over your 12 years of kind of working with Microseismic, seeing it progress from where it came from to where it was 12 years ago to where it is today, what do you see as far as some of those changes that were good and some of the changes that were bad, stuff like that?
Yeah, when I first started, we didn't even have any engineers working at our company, and then we evolved to where we had a whole engineering group, and that's what we have now. I'm the head of the completions evaluation group, and it's an important part of our group. We, like I said, we take all this geophysical information and we relay it to the engineers, and we've evolved. Every one of our projects that we do, we have evolved from all of the previous projects. So it's like we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, that's right, man.
We are constantly learning. That's why our 20 years of experience with Microseismic Inc. is so powerful. It's because we continue to evolve. We've had a lot of success in stress modeling, in fracture modeling, in understanding fluid flow. There has been, a lot of ideas that we come up with that eventually kind of go to the wayside, but that's just part of the process.
Yeah, kind of weeding through all that stuff. Wow. So you get you get your degrees, you get through USGS, you get in your opportunity. When you started with Microseismic, what's changed the most, in your opinion, I guess, with microseismic technology from when you started to today?
So our algorithms continue to evolve. We've really developed the ability for auto moment tensor inversion, and that opened up the door for us. What that is when we locate microseismic events, they're just like little earthquakes, or they're like big earthquakes, but on the micro scale. And so it's not just the XYZ date time. We also have this incredible information, like these fractures that you see here, where we can understand the orientation of the fractures, strike, dip, but also the rake, which direction it's moving. And so that auto moment tensor inversion that tells us all that information for every single microseismic event just opens up the doors for all sorts of fracture modeling, and then evaluating stress and how that stress changes dynamically. And we can also get how the fractures are even opening or if they're closing, and that volumetric sense. So there's so much information there that we can just evolve and continue to run with that type of information.
So when a microseismic event happens in the reservoir, for example, you get a data set that ends up looking like a million bubbles, right? And they're like different sizes, magnitudes, and different changes. When you're recording that, how the heck does that happen? So you got a normal fault happening in the reservoir. It's only so big, and it's its size. So you have a set of microseismic events that are really specifically like shaping out a normal fault, and you can kind of start seeing the boundaries of that as it's switching to.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And so that rock, as it breaks in some fashion, those waves are transferred up to the surface where we have all of our sensors, and we record that motion on the sensors, and whatever it looks like, we resolve that from the radiation pattern and intensity of those
in real time?
In real time.
Golly.
And so we can see how everything is evolving and changing. And all microseismic events are not created equal. You see that cloud of events.
Yeah.
It really is very specific on what is happening in that area. When you treat a well here and then you move to an offset well, the pressure created from here is going to influence your frac over here. But we may see microseismic events on that previously treated well, but what it's showing us is that the stresses have changed in that area, and there's pressures that are developed from that initial treatment that are pushing the other frac away from it. And once that stress shadow goes away, we see the mechanisms changing, and you're sending all your fluid back to that previously treated well.
Oh, wow.
It can be extremely important.
Yeah, because that could be a sink. That's a pressure sink.
Pressure sink.
And you're not
exactly
stimulating anything new. So let's clear the airwaves. Pardon the pun. I heard that, or there's a rumor that the amount of force that we're using to hydraulically fracture is equivalent to like tectonic scale forces. Is that true?
It can be, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we can reactivate faults very easily. Places like the Vaca Muerta in Argentina, you can actually shear off the wellbore, or in the Eagleford. We see this happening very
The Eagleford has
commonly.
a bunch of shearing going on?
Yeah, and so as you're building up pressure from the toe to the heel, we see the microseismic events getting bigger and more common, more frequent. So you're building that pore pressure as you're going from the toe to heel. And so once you get to that heel, you're creating so much pressure that they can shear off the well, especially in the heel. So this can be a way that we can say, okay, at some point, enough is enough. We don't want to cause any problems with the wellbore. And these are the type of answers we can provide with microseismic monitoring.
I wish we had a lot more time together, because I feel like there's so many cool rabbit holes to go down with you on what you're seeing in the data. But last question on the technical stuff: as you're modeling an area and you're figuring out what the fault's doing, the focal mechanism, of this area, it's tension. The geologic rock record shows us that where tension takes place in geologic time at outcrop is typically where you see these big dumps of like the copper or gold or whatever the resources we're trying to find, oil and gas. It's happening where tension's taking place. So you're modeling that? Is that you're modeling kind of where tension's happening, and then you're getting your fluid flow through the tension of the system?
Yeah, it's just like these cubes we're seeing. You have to understand the orientation of the principal stresses, sigma 1, 2, and 3, and that really drives how these fractures develop. And then as you increase the pressure, you reactivate more complex fracture orientations. And that's the key. We want to understand, can we increase the complexity? And what are the effects of changing the stress? When you inject, you're changing that stress. You move over to another well, you've changed that stress around that previously treated area. What are the effects of that? Sometimes there could be rotations that can make other faults more prone to failure. So we need to understand that.
Yeah, if you're changing the stress fields, which is changing where tension's really going on in your oil reservoir, you can be closing pathways of migration for that oil to come to your wellbores and get to your tanks, or you could be opening them. I mean,
yeah, exactly. In other industries like in geothermal, it's all about the dilation tendency of the fractures. That's where we're getting the increased permeability. So as you change these things, what's happening there? Which fractures are dilating and which ones are less prone to dilation?
That's exactly where I want to take the rest of this show with you. Is Microseismic Inc. 20 years of history, 20 years of listening, and just seeing the details and at the micro level, right? And mapping that and all the algorithms, everything that you guys have, all the experience in that. The team is still together. You learned all these years through oil and gas what's happening. How are you applying that to karst and carbon sequestration and and geothermal. How does this apply?
Yes, so we've taken all of our experience and we packaged it up into all these different products, but we're repurposing it, for geothermal, looking at these stress changes, understanding the fracture modeling, looking at proppant transport.
So in geothermal exploration, they're horizontally drilling and fracking?
Not in the exploration phase, but in the actual enhanced geothermal systems. There's conventional, but then a lot of companies are actually fracking the rock, creating more permeability, and it's very similar to the hydraulic fracturing that we have going on in oil and gas. The difference is we need to model these proppant packs very precisely because we don't want the proppant packs from two different wells to actually be combining, because we need to have them separated at least a bit so that the fluid has time to go into the natural part of the reservoir and get heated up so that it can be produced and turned into steam. So these are the things that we're trying to understand. It is a little bit different than oil and gas. But we're going into the karstic terrain, monitoring for